Well, thank you all for being here. I am going to get Nikki to turn on her camera and I'll introduce her and I'll introduce us. Thank you all for joining. My name is Sarah. I am the Director of Marketing here at DiscoverE. And I just want to tell you really quickly a little bit about what we do. We lead a growing volunteer movement. We really strongly believe that an educator and a professional and a child can have a really transformative experience, and it's core to what we do. We are the E in STEM. That's why we're DiscoverE. We're the E in STEM, and we support educators and volunteers. We want to volunteer. We want to increase volunteers. We want to connect, educate, and celebrate. I know that these go hand in hand with the wonderful work at WGBH and the Design Squad Maker team. We have some very specific programs. We do Chats with Changemakers, which is where we bring a professional engineer or technologist to have a Zoom chat, and we beam that into classrooms. It's free. We beam it into classrooms all over, so you can look out for more information about that. We're also the big brains behind Engineers Week, which many of you will participate in February. Introduce a Girl to Engineering happens at the end of that week. We do the Future City competition, which is a national middle school STEM competition. And the Persist series is for women, well, all engineers, but really specifically women in engineering, and how thriving conditions can be made possible in the profession. And finally, World Engineering Day. On our website, you can find 150 free STEM activities, challenge videos, find out about what is engineering, including all of the different fields and methodologies of engineering, in case you have college students who are looking to maybe go into one of them. We have posters, ads, artwork, and a copyright-free photo library for any of you marketers out there that are looking for some extra pictures that you can use. And we also do outreach grants. That's what we do. I'll stop sharing so that Nikki can start sharing. And Nikki is from WGBH Design Squad Maker, where she does marketing and outreach for them. And we're so excited to have her here. I got to see a preview of this. It feels like it was just a few days ago. I'm so excited about it. And you can throw questions in the chat if you have them. And I will be here to help direct and answer and get those questions up to Nikki. Thank you so much for joining. And Nikki, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I am so excited to be here. Huge fans of the work that you do at DiscoverE, and we're so thankful to be able to do this webinar with you. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm really excited to share about the newest program from Design Squad called Design Squad Maker. This project came out of a research and development grant in collaboration with GBH in Boston and the New York Hall of Science. And this work was all supported by NSF, and I am ready to dig right in and share all about this project. So just to give you a quick agenda for what I hope to do in this webinar today, I'll start with just an introduction, a bit more about who I am and what the work GBH does. And then we'll dive right into Design Squad Maker. So we'll share, how did this project come about and how did we develop these specific resources for Design Squad Maker? We'll take a quick little make break. I dislike having a webinar about engineering or making without an opportunity to get our hands dirty and have an opportunity to build something. So we'll do a quick little hands-on build together. And then I'll do a deep dive into the toolkit, the suite of resources, including printable materials, but also the app that we developed for this program. And then at the end, we'll have time for some questions. So let's get into it. So my name is Nikki Siriani. I am an outreach and marketing manager in the education department at GBH. GBH is Boston's local public media station. We produce about a fourth of the content that you see on PBS and PBS Kids. Some of our well-known brands are Nova, Arthur is a beloved brand of GBH, Frontline, Masterpiece, all of that good stuff. In the education department, what we do is we create free resources for educators, both in school time and out of school time, sometimes using our shows and brands, other time creating bespoke educational curriculum using digital media. And we serve grades K through 12, and most of these resources we create live on pbslearningmedia.org, which is our free website for educators. I definitely encourage you all to check out some of the good stuff we have on there. So let's get into Design Squad Maker. So Design Squad Maker set out to kind of look at this issue of kids who get really engaged and excited about working with engineering and making problems, and they get this great opportunity to bring their math skills, their science skills together to solve meaningful real world problems. But sustaining that engagement across different times and settings can be a challenge. And we know that educators and we know that maker spaces and museums and caregivers all play a really important role in helping to sustain this interest and engagement, but they need tools to help do that. So we wanted to see if we could create some hands-on resources as well as a digital resource that can help connect kids' experience in making and engineering across time and across setting. And we also wanted to take this opportunity to research what supports do children need, what support do facilitators of these kind of activities need, and what supports do caregivers need in helping to support their children and engaging in these kinds of activities. So that's kind of where we started with Design Squad Maker. We undertook a really iterative development process, which included a lot of rounds of researching, developing, testing, changing, on and on and on. So we kind of started with a series of rapid prototyping of hands-on activities to see what was the best way for facilitators to introduce families to the design process in kind of a workshop setting. And what we found from that rapid prototyping was that quick introductions to the design process were really effective, followed by kind of letting families explore the design process at their own pace with kind of mentoring from the facilitator. So that's what we learned from that series of testing. After that rapid prototyping, we kind of developed our series of workshops and take-home activities and apps that we tested and developed with families. And with that, we learned that families really expressed a need for helping them surmount these barriers that they found. They were interested in doing engineering challenges, but often remarked on not having enough time, not having enough resources, not having enough space to do these kind of activities at home. So we decided to create supports to help address all of those needs from families. And we also found in the workshops that creating themes really helped families engage with the design process in a meaningful way, but also helped scaffold the experience for them to kind of identify their client and their problem in a way that was meaningful to them, but also supported. So we identified themes that were effective in kind of creating those more meaningful experiences with the engineering and design process with families. And we also tested many rounds of our app prototype to see what kind of support a digital tool could have in helping families step through the design process. We also sent out the materials to 10 different makerspaces across the US for feedback, and they gave wonderful insights to the materials. And I think one of the most meaningful pieces of feedback we got from that was building more flexibility into the materials. For example, what about a makerspace that wanted to do, say, more of a drop-in workshop instead of a prescripted timed workshop? What about a virtual option? All these kind of ways to build flexibility into our materials so that they can meet the needs of different makerspaces or museums across the country. So after we did that series of iterative development and testing, we really undertook 2 big research studies to kind of gauge the impact of our materials. The first, which is now concluded, was our pilot study, which was done by our partners at NYSCI in September through January. And that happened at the New York Hall of Science, NYSCI, Decatur Makers, and Pittsburgh Children's Museum. And during this pilot study is where we really perfected, I would say, the virtual format of the workshop, because at that time, some different spaces were in different readiness to be back in person due to the pandemic. So that's where we tested that virtual format and I won't say perfected, but iterated and improved it from our previous version. We also learned during this testing, we kind of narrowed down our workshop themes to the ones that were most popular and effective with families. And we also created a more customizable theme for workshops that wanted even more flexibility in the materials, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But we also learned from this pilot study that the app was really effective in connecting from kids' workshop experience to then their home experience. And a lot of the families remarked that they continue to use the app at home to kind of bridge that gap between that workshop, museum, makerspace experience, and then continuing to build and engineer and make at home, which is really the goal of the app and creating these program materials. We are currently in the middle of doing our summative evaluation with the Concord Evaluation Group, where we're having the materials tested in 8 different museums and makerspaces across the country. And I will be happy to share the results of that evaluation with anybody who is interested once we have those findings. We're really excited to get those back.
Nikki, we had a question already.
Yeah, sure.
Kimberly was asking if you could share some of the names of the makerspaces that had provided feedback from your pilot study.
Oh, I would have to go and relook at my notes. That was over a year ago, but I'll be happy to look that up during our make break and I can share that with you.
Thank you.
Perfect. So speaking of our make break, I thought now would be a great opportunity, now that I've talked at you for quite a few minutes, for you all to get a more hands-on feel of our materials and what we mean by making and engineering a little bit more accessible for people at home. So what we're going to do at this make break, we are going to do the Design Squad Maker Material Scavenger Hunt. You will have 2 minutes to go search for your materials, and I will give you time prompts. And then after collecting, we will be doing one of the quick builds from the Design Squad Maker materials, and I'll give you 4 minutes to do that quick build. But I thought this might be an opportunity to get away from the computers for a little bit and dig into some of the making opportunities. So here is the material scavenger hunt from Design Squad Maker. I'm going to start my timer now. You have 2 minutes to find whatever you can around your home or office or wherever you are. You'll see the different categories of things that we have kind of found many people have accessible at home, but do not feel limited to these categories or these ideas. So I would love for you to find at least something in 2 of each of these two categories that are here. So look for tools, recycled treasures, sticks, papers, and other stuff, outdoor finds, and hold it together items. And your time starts now. You have 1 more minute to find stuff.
I'm so glad I organized my office. I know where this stuff is, Nikki.
Yes. I will say usually recycling bins are a treasure trove of fun things to make with at home. There's often many a goodies in there. I know, I hope nobody did spring cleaning right before this webinar. 30 seconds. And time. Okay. Now I would like you to make something. Look over the materials you've collected during the scavenger hunt and try making something new with whatever you found. Normally, if we were in a smaller group, I'd have people share what they made. But in this case, you can do what we ask kids to do in our materials. Tell a family member about what you made and share it with them at home. If you need a theme, maybe think about something you could use at home to make your life a little bit easier around the house. Maybe something if you're working from home, maybe something for your pet or your family that would solve a problem you might have. You now have 4 minutes to make something. You have 2 more minutes to build.
Oh, Nikki, the perfectionist in me is colliding with the competitiveness in me.
It is, I know it can be very hard to build, test, and iterate in 4 minutes and get your design where you want it, but try your best. Everyone has about 40 seconds left to build.
Susan, what a good idea. Susan's building an airplane with a toilet paper tube, wings, a straw run-through tube, triangle, tail triangle paper, and then slit into tube. That's very smart.
Awesome.
I went a little bit nerdy, not in like an engineering way, just in a dorky way.
And that is time. So if anybody would like to share what they made in the chat, like that awesome airplane, please do. I will share what I built. One problem I have at home is my dog is in a constant fight with the squirrels outside of our window. So sometimes I'm on Zoom meetings and my dog is barking. So I created a dog scratcher, which I can extend and use to pet my dog while I'm still on Zoom meetings to calm her down. Sarah, would you like to share what you made?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, and I have these really pretty metal dice, but I also have a glass table, so I can't roll them on my desk. So I made a little tray and I put cotton balls on the bottom so that I can roll and it won't hit my desk and it'll like be sound dampened a little bit. That's what I made.
I think that's wonderful.
Look, I'm a nerd. I'm sending it to one of my friends at DiscoverE, who's also a nerd of this flavor. I am seeing so many wonderful things. I'm just going to tell everybody, you can please tweet or share your amazing pictures of your amazing creations. You can tag us at DiscoverE.org and at Design Squad is lovely. I'll throw it into chat also.
Awesome. That's great. So that was just to give everybody a sense of how we're trying to use our materials to show families you have more than you think you know already available to use and make at home. And this was a sample of, we have a lot of long activities if you have a lot of time, but a lot of our families express they don't have a ton of time to engage in kind of making and engineering at home activities at home. So we have a lot of these quick builds like this Make It one here. Even you can do it in 5 minutes, but if you have longer, you can take even more time to do it. But that way families just felt like they had a lot of opportunities for making at home, and time wouldn't have to be a barrier. Materials wouldn't have to be so much of a barrier. But with that little intro and opportunity, let's dig more into the toolkit so you all can get a sense of the full collection of resources and the other things that we have in Design Squad Maker. So Design Squad Maker Toolkit comprises of 3 main components. For in a makerspace or in a after school program or in a museum or wherever you might be leading engineering or making activities, we have guided workshops. In each of these workshops, or we have 4 themes for the workshops plus a customizable theme. So families would come to your program and participate in one of these themed workshops where they'd learn about the design process. They'd get the opportunity to build together as a family, and they'd be introduced to the app during this workshop. But then once they have the app kind of serves as this linkage between in the workshop space activity and then at home. So they bring home the app on their phone, as well as a suite of take-home materials that every family leaves the workshop with. So they continue using the design process at home, using the app. They can continue the project they started in the workshop, but there's also tons of resources for them to start new projects, and also do these quick activities as well if time was an issue for them. So the facilitator guide, I think, is our big bulk of resources. It's one giant PDF. And within this PDF, which is available or will be available for free, here's a just kind of overview of everything that is inside of this guide. And this chart is also in the facilitator guide as well as you begin reading it. And it kind of shows you which resources are for which audience. So it comes with the Design Squad Maker workshop, which I'll do a run through in a second of what that looks like for facilitators. It comes with all those different themes I was talking about. So you could have some variety or choose the theme that is most relevant to your audience. It also has the workshop variations, which is you creating your own custom theme. If you don't think any of the themes we've created, or if you want to do more. There's also a training your team guide for facilitators. So for some supports, if you're introducing this to other members or want to help kind of onboard other people on your team to how to use these materials. Then we have the Design Squad Maker app, which is really kid facing, but also for caregivers. And we have a download the app handout to use in the workshop, which has a QR code so families can download it immediately. And the app is free as well from the Apple app and Google Play stores, but I'll talk about that also later. We have a caregiver's role handout, which gives families, and it's for caregivers during the workshop, and it gives them ideas of what role they could take on as they work with their kids in the engineering and design process. You know, they could be a note taker or a recorder taking pictures. They could be a mentor or a co-brainstormer. It just gives them a series of tangible ways they can work and support their kid without kind of telling their child what to do during the engineering or making, which is sometimes the instinct of parents, like, no, that won't work. But instead giving them more supportive roles to kind of help guide on the side. Also, our poster pieces for the design process in this guide and other design process handouts that you might need. There's also a backpack image, which is used when introducing the workshop to families. It's used to explain diagramming. So there's all the steps for how to do that, but that image is in here as well. And then there's a printable Keep Making at Home booklet for families to take after the workshop, which is a multi-page kind of booklet. And I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later, but every family can leave the workshop with that booklet so they have opportunities and ideas for continuing to make at home. Also in this facilitator guide are promotional materials for you to promote having the workshop. So there's website descriptions, a social media toolkit for getting the word out about these workshops, and posters and other signage that you might want to post around your space to alert families that this workshop is happening in your setting. So the workshop guide is specific to facilitators, and it has everything that you would need for leading each one of these workshops in about a 60-minute or a 90-minute, design activity session. So the workshop materials have any language you might need for introducing the topic to families. It has any prep that you would need to do, including like what you might need to print or assemble, material ideas that are recommended for these workshops. It also has what I love, and I want to highlight tips built into the materials, including tips for if younger siblings are in the workshop. We often know families who come to makerspaces or museums come together, and these materials are geared toward kids ages 8 to 11, but we know often younger siblings are there. So there are tips for how to incorporate younger siblings or give them roles or ways to participate as well. There are also facilitation tips for the facilitator and also caregiver tips for ways to engage parents or caregivers who are there in the workshop as well. And you'll see here's the design process that we use for these materials. You'll lead families or give them a quick overview of this process before they dig into their experience. But each workshop generally runs as first, you kind of introduce families to the workshop, the theme that your workshop is having. Then you kind of introduce them to the design process, setting up the topic for the day as you explain it. And then you give families a quick overview of the app and help them download it to their phone. And then you let families kind of use the app and self-guide through the rest of the workshop. And you float around and kind of check in with families as they are building their design solutions. So as I mentioned, there are different themes. The first workshop material, the main theme that's already in there is school. But in the materials, you'll see these little swap icons you can see in the workshop theme document in the bottom left. And that's where you'll see the opportunity to swap, say like the introduction or setting up the problem with all these different themes. So the other themes that you have available are animals, clothing, and home. And these were the themes that we tested with families, and families and kids often found really meaningful, relevant issues within these themes to do in the workshops. And then here's also a picture of the theme template, where you have the opportunity to customize or create your own theme. Say maybe you're in a museum and there's a specific, space program that you're doing and you want to do a workshop that kind of correlates to that. This gives you an opportunity to do that. Or if, say, your program is celebrating a specific kind of time of year and you want to do a theme maybe related to winter or something along those lines, there's just that opportunity for you to customize it to your audience to just make sure that these workshops are relevant to the families that you're working with. So
Nikki,
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
These materials, they're so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
They're available in English right now. Is that accurate?
Yes, they are only available in English.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So I wanted to share some examples of some builds that kids have made in each of these themes, because I think sometimes this is the most fun part, right, of seeing the materials. So in the top left here, this was for our home workshop. This child felt that it could be really difficult to wake up for school in the morning. So they designed this cat alarm clock that would go off. And if the person did not wake up in time, the cat would hide in your backpack and then embarrass you at school. So that was their way of making sure that they could wake up in time to make it on the school bus. The next one over top right, this was for our school workshop. This student thought, sometimes they expressed getting really distracted during school and had trouble sometimes taking notes and listening to what the teacher was saying. So they developed this set of headphones that transcribed what the teacher was saying automatically onto a pencil and could write notes. So she never missed what the teacher was saying, would have plenty of notes to study for when the test came about. In the bottom left, this is for our animals workshop. They were really concerned about animals in the wild who might not have a home or a place to live. So they built this kind of, it was kind of like a mouse deluxe condo, but a mouse shelter. So the mouse would have a place to live out in the wild. And then the bottom right is one of my personal favorites. This was for our clothing workshop. This girl and her family had traveled a lot and been to a lot of places where pickpocketing was a real issue. So she developed these pickpocket-proof pants, which came up very high, but had a lot of hidden buttons and compartments, making it much more of a challenge for pickpockets to reach the valuables that this family had stored. So as you can see here, just some examples of what our students have built. They don't have to be, like, reality is not a big concern. It's more about just igniting their creativity and their excitement for engaging in the engineering and design process. And you can see most prototyping is usually the end result of being in this workshop. I also have this video of one student explaining their design that I thought might be fun to share as well.
So I made an unbreakable detector and a GPS. so if my pencil gets lost, I can find it. And in my class, always their pencils get lost and they always break. So I came up with a design and I built it.
So as you could hear, that student noticed at school, like a lot of kids' pencils were breaking and a lot of kids were always losing their pencils. So he built this like mega unbreakable pencil and then a GPS watch so he could always locate where his pencil was. So those are kind of the workshop materials. So that's what families engage with while they're at the makerspace or at the museum or wherever they're doing these activities. But the other key components and wraparound parts to this program are the app and the take-home materials. So the Design Squad Maker app, as I said, families are introduced to it in the workshop, and they get the experience of going through the app as they build in the workshop, but then also they are encouraged to keep making at home using the app. And I'm going to do an app kind of walkthrough showing you the main features in just 1 second. But then we also have this suite of take-home materials for families. So caregiver tips and caregiver roles are given to the families in the workshop. So caregiver tips kind of share with families, you know, what are the benefits of making? Why is it important to encourage your child to have this opportunity to engage? And what are ways that you can do that? And the Keep Making at Home booklet is really comprehensive. It starts with this flow chart right here, which has families answer a series of questions and then kind of gives them solutions for finding the time, space, and materials to keep making at home. So it kind of asks you, you know, do you have a lot of time? If you say no, it's like, great, try one of our quick activities on page 9. Do you have a space? No, then it gives you tips for how to find space at home for making, and just kind of addresses a lot of those challenges we heard from testing from families. Yeah, so digging into the app a little bit more, the Design Squad Maker app, the whole purpose is to really serve as a support to lead kids through the whole design process, as you see here. So as kids open up the app, the first thing they can do is make a fidget, which is one of these little characters you see on the bottom left. And that fidget kind of serves as their making guide and companion throughout the app. So after they make their fidget, it kind of opens up to starting a new project in the project page. And once you do that, you get this graphic of the design process, and it then steps kids through each step. And at the beginning of each step, there's a quick animation, which talks about what's supposed to happen during the step of the design process. And then it gives supports for then actually doing that for a project. So I wanted to give you a quick taste of what this looks like. The videos look like.
That the design process is a helpful tool you can use to solve problems, big or small. Anyone who wants to build or make things better can use it. The steps of the design process are: define a problem, brainstorm and plan, build a prototype, test, iterate. First, define your problem. Imagine something you'd like to fix or make better. What problem do you want to solve? Follow the steps to help you think of a problem or talk to someone. Now that you have your problem, think of lots of different ways to solve it. That's called brainstorming. When you brainstorm, it can be helpful to ask your grown-up or friend to think of ideas with you. When you have a few ideas written down, pick your favorite. Before you start building, plan what you're going to make by writing your ideas or creating a diagram. A diagram is a drawing with labels that shows the important parts of your idea. Now it's time to build a prototype or a simple version of your idea. You can make it with materials you might find around you, like cardboard and tape. Grab any tools you might need, like scissors or a ruler. Find some space on a table or the floor and start building. You can take photos to document what you make. You'll need to test your prototype to see how well it's working. There are different ways to test. You can test it yourself, or you can talk to someone about how it works. When you test, you want to check if your prototype is solving the problem and works the way you meant it to. Ask yourself, what parts could I improve? Once you finish testing, you might have some ideas about how to change your project to make it better. That's called iterating. You can go back to any step in the design process and make changes.
So that's an overview of the app. So kids, they wouldn't get that all at once, so that the video in the app is available all together. They'd get the segment that is relevant to whichever step they're on of the design process. So the app kind of guides kids through the whole process that you just heard. And it has a lot of features to help kids keep track of where they are in the step of the design process and documenting their work as they go along. So as they start by identifying a problem or a client, they get the opportunity to write that down and keep notes. And then they get the opportunity to also do that same thing as they're brainstorming. As they're diagramming or drawing their plan of the idea they want to do, there's the opportunity to do that within the app and create labels, but they can also do that on paper and then take photos and have that documented in their project space. Then as they're building, again, there's the opportunity to take photos of their build, to have that recorded. And then there's a checklist for testing to help them remember that stage as well in the design process. And then as you see in the track your process slide, there's then an overview of the whole project, and they can go back to any stage of the design process and iterate. So they can go all the way back to brainstorming and pick a totally new idea to design and plan for, or say they can go back to build or try testing again and iterate again in any stage of the design process. So also featured within the app are a lot of helpful tips. So if you click on that fidget character I told you that you made in the beginning, you're seeing a lot of varieties of ways you can customize your fidget with the fidgets on screen. If you click on your fidget, there are kid examples of real world projects to help kids who might need to see a visual idea or just get some more brainstorming ideas going. There are fidget tips for each step of the design process to help with reminders for kids who might be stuck. And then we also have the family roles in here again for parents who might be doing this, or caregivers who might be working on this app with their kids, to help them also know what are some potential roles that they could take to help support their kid through the design process. Also in the app are these quick activities, and these are the same quick activities that are found in the take-home materials, but they're in a digital format here. So like that material scavenger hunt, which we did earlier, here's a digital version of that where kids can click to collect whatever materials they have at home. And then there are those quick design challenges found within here too, in case families don't have the time to go through and do a full out design process altogether. So the app really has a lot of resources for using the design process in a lot of different ways. So where to find all of these resources? The toolkit and everything I just mentioned will be available for free at PBS Learning Media. Fingers crossed by the end of this month, which is really exciting. And then eventually it will also be coming to NYSCI.org and informalscience.org in the future, probably closer to the fall, but it will be at PBS Learning Media by the end of this month. And you can see a picture of the website right there below. And the Design Squad Maker app is currently available for free download in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And now I think it is time for some questions. And I did want to say, I did get the name of all the maker spaces who we got feedback from to answer that question from earlier. So the maker spaces are the Scott Family Amazium, the Betty Bryn Children's Makerspace, the Bubbler, the Children's Museum of Houston, Decatur Makers, Gizmo CDA, Matt's Makerspace, Moxie, the Thinkery, and UT Spectrum. And I'm happy to send that list as a follow-up because that was a lot to remember.
Nikki, first off, this is so exciting. I'm so glad that Design Squad Maker and WGBH are working on this really critical time for kids to get involved and know that they can engineer. Right. So this is awesome. We have a couple of questions.
Yes.
They're sitting, excuse me.
No worries.
I'm too excited. That are sitting in our chat. Can kids share the projects they create externally from the app?
No, the app is a closed space. So kids can upload their photos and all of that just stays kind of internal to them, but they can go back and look at their projects, their own projects, but no, they can't share to one another.
Okay. And the facilitator's guide will be located where?
At pbslearningmedia.org.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Will this replay be available afterward? Yes, this webinar will go up on our YouTube. So we will make sure that you can get a link to that. Is there a way to track progress as a facilitator using the app to see like where kids are?
Yeah, you'd have to, what happens in the workshops is there is a handout where we encourage families and parents to download the app to their phone or iPad if they have it. If not, some facilitator spaces have kind of a facilitator iPad that they use for families who don't have that. But we kind of have families do it on their own. So facilitators can go check in and see what their families are doing. But there's no kind of way for the facilitator to receive all that data collectively, because it really is supposed to be something for families to start in the workshop and then continue once they leave the workshop at home.
Awesome. Is the app free?
Yep, totally free.
Where somebody is asking for the links to the website into the chat. Yeah, that's not a problem. Give me just a second here and I can get those in there for you. What ages are these activities for?
Yeah, so the workshops are designed for kids ages 8 to 11 and their families. But as I said, we recognize that oftentimes younger siblings are also involved in these kind of activities. So we do have some facilitation tips for how to incorporate younger siblings as well. So I say 8 and 10 in families.
Fantastic. Does this work on the Chromebook?
Yes, should work everywhere. Yeah.
Lovely. Lots of thanks for sharing. Lots of those in the chat.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Is there a way for kids to collaborate via the app?
Not right now. That's a really interesting idea, but we were kind of envisioning this as being more of a family activity rather than a lot of kids working together, like some of our other programs kind of groups of 3 to 4 kids together to collaborate on a problem. But this, we really are gearing this more towards like caregivers and their kids and potentially siblings working together. But hypothetically, I could see how if you had kids sharing a device, they could totally work together on the same project. I think there are ways to accommodate the facilitation to make that a possibility.
That's awesome. I'm reading through the comments, making sure that we're answering all the questions. Is the app SOPA compliant?
Yes.
Easy. Yep. Katie Kelly, who was one of our amazing engineers on Chats with Changemakers, she says this is great for when we have to flip from in-person to online, or when parents are trying to teach simultaneously and also working. I love this. Kyra would like to know, is this something an organization can use for parent night?
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. Like at your school's parent night, to have this in your learning commons or library or makerspace.
I think
this is awesome.
I think that sounds amazing. And again, we design these one way, but we encourage people to customize or alter or use them however you think would best serve your audience. We would never come in and say, you must only use this one way. We have tested them. You are the experts in your audience. You know what works for your kids and your families. And we totally encourage you to adapt the materials any way that you see fit.
Fantastic. Lots of people starting to brainstorm about where they could use this. So that's fun. Awesome. Invention conventions and STEM nights at schools. That's great. I'm just going to look one more time to make sure I didn't miss anything. Can you receive recordings? Yes, we will make sure that everybody who is here today gets a link to the app, to the websites. We have all of that ready to go as soon as we're done. Is this app a kid's version of design engineering? I'm not sure if design engineering is an actual program, but I do know that this is definitely a kid's version, ages 8 to 12, as Nikki said, of the engineering design process and how you can go through those stages and all of that. Another question about, is there any plans to interpret materials into Spanish?
That would be a dream. We would always love to do that. It's always a funding issue on our end. If we receive funding to do that, I think we would love to do that. But if you are interested in Spanish engineering materials, another exciting program is Design Squad Latinx, which is coming out later on this year. And we can definitely stay in touch about that. But that is a program specifically designed. It's a bilingual engineering program from Design Squad, developed for and with Latinx communities. We're currently piloting those materials now, and there'll be a whole different kind of collection of engineering activities, but those are coming later this year from Design Squad, if that would be of interest.
That is fantastic. So Mary Jo, Nikki's email is on
right there.
It's on the screen. Send her an email and connect with her. If there's any other questions, does Design Squad have materials for older students as well?
Sure, we sure do. So Design Squad has a really long history. We actually started as a television show on PBS Kids in 2007, but since then it's kind of evolved to more of an outreach and engagement program from PBS and GBH. So if you go to our website, Design Squad, pbskids.org/Design Squad, there you can find a whole suite of resources and activities. If you click on that, that's the kid facing site. But if you go to the top right-hand corner, you'll find a parent and educator site. And there you can link to a lot of our specific activities. Our target age range is usually middle school, but I definitely think there's some activities there that you'll find that are for upper middle, maybe even early high school age range that I think would be really appropriate.
Awesome. pbskids.org/Design Squad. That is correct. I will throw the link into chat again, just because I happen to have it up. When will the link to the facilitator guide be available?
Hoping by the end of this month.
So just in a couple more weeks. And you can email Nikki if you want to get that. You can email me. I'm sarah@discovere.org, and I can get that to you as well. I know that we've had several teachers who are teaching right now who wanted to see this, and they're like, I have a list of people who I'm sending this out to afterwards. This is awesome. I'll give a few more minutes in case there's any questions. Several people saying they've already downloaded it. So that's so fantastic. We cannot wait to meet your future engineers and welcome them into the profession. This is lovely. And thank you to all of our attendees for being here with us today. Nikki, thank you so much. I'll stick around for a few more minutes in case anybody has more questions for us. But thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful, I was going to say weekend, but it's only Wednesday. Have a wonderful almost weekend. How about that? And thank you all for being here.